Lakeland Currents, your public affairs program for North Central Minnesota. Closed captioning is made possible by Bemidji Regional Airport, serving the region with daily flights to Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. More information available at bemidjiairport.org.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Ray Gildow, and welcome to Lakeland Currents. Today I'm going to talk with a group of people that I think you're going to find very interesting. And I think when we go through life and meet someone who is really a person who changes things and has an effect on lots of people, I think we consider ourselves pretty lucky. And that's how I feel today about our main guest. Sam Anderson is a friend of mine. He has done amazing things in the Brainerd area, which we're going to talk about here momentarily. But he's a person who has made a difference in a lot of people's lives through what's called the Central Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. And Sam is the director of the Central Minnesota group, right?
Yep.
And Sam, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Ray.
And you have two guests. Would you like to just introduce them?
Patrick and Samuel with me, and they're both current clients in our program.
Welcome aboard, guys. Glad to have you here. Let's talk a little bit about what is Teen Challenge and maybe how it got started, and then what you do here.
Yep. So back in 1958, a man by the name of David Wilkerson reaching out to young teen gang members on the streets in New York. At the time, people thought once a junkie, always a junkie. There's no hope for these people. They're throwaways. And he didn't believe that. He believed that God's power and love could transform any human heart, even if they were addicted to drugs. And so he started the program Teen Challenge. It's now, we're the globe's largest network of recovery programs. The Teen Challenge is all around the world. There's actually more Teen Challenges in Russia today than there are in the United States.
Really?
We have about 230 campuses within the United States. Some of them are smaller, coffee outreaches or whatever. Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge started back in the 80s, opened and closed, struggled in its early days. And then our just now retired CEO, Rich Scherber, had come out of the drug life in the 70s, had gone on the mission field to South Africa for 8 years or 7 years, came back, and the board had approached him about taking it over. He said, well, what do you have? Well, we have about $30,000 in debt. We have no buildings, no vehicles, no clients, a phone ringing off the hook, and a Kirby vacuum. And he's like, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole. And they couldn't sleep that night, he and his wife, and they felt compelled, we need to do something. So they took over the reins of Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge, and now today, 30 plus years later, we're the largest provider of addiction recovery services in the state of Minnesota.
Wow. And
it's humbling what God has done through Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. And we are a faith-based program. We're unashamedly Christian in our approach. You don't have to be a Christian to come into the program or to graduate the program, but that's who we are. Mm-hmm. And we have multiple programs. We're the only program that's doing all of the things we're doing. Everything from prevention. We go into public schools and bring in young clients from our programs and say, listen, it's not a shame you shouldn't do drugs message. It's, hey, I did drugs and these were the consequences I suffered. We would encourage you, don't make these choices. And it's been really effective. So we have a prevention program that goes into schools. We have our outpatient programs where, let's say somebody just got their first DUI and they're required by the courts or by their employer to do treatment, but they still have a job. They can do their outpatient program. Then if they can't stay sober there, we have our licensed short-term residential chemical dependency program, traditional treatment, what people think of when they think 28 days, 30 days, 60 days. That program, we make the faith-based portion of our program optional. If you want to attend chapel, if you want to meet with a chaplain, if you'd like to engage in the Bible studies that are offered, you're free to do that, but you don't have to. Then we have our long-term program, which is the signature program of Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge, has always been. That's the 13-month residential recovery program that these two guys are a part of. People don't come into our year-long program if they were just smoking weed on the weekend, right? These guys laugh. You had a serious chemical addiction. Our very first graduate was a 10-year IV heroin user. And for most of our clients, the thought of sobriety is so distant, so alien to them that I could actually be sober. Many have just given up, and their families many times have given up. There's no hope for these people. We don't believe that. We believe that absolutely anybody can break free if they want to, and put in the hard work for it. And then beyond that, we have alumni aftercare services. So when you graduate the program, we're not done with you. You're part of the family now. And we do monthly barbecues at my house, and this is just locally, but statewide we do stuff. We do a weekly Saturday morning breakfast for graduates, Monday night Bible study, all kinds of things. Plus we plug into the local recovery community, so Celebrate Recovery, AA groups. We do the entire continuum of care, from reaching to the hurting and the broken and the lost on the streets. We go into detoxes, we go onto the streets. We share the message of hope. We want people to feel like there is hope, they can break free. So to have all of that, nobody else is doing all of that.
Amazing. And where are you located in Brainerd?
So we're located on the south edge of town on the old 371 in the old Assembly of God church building. That congregation paid off a $1.25 million note they had taken out on that building to help them build their new building, and gifted that building debt-free to Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge in 2008, January of 2008. And then we started the remodel, and we opened it June of 2008, and I've been the director up here ever since.
Wow. And I don't know if you want to talk about Alec now, or if you want to do that later in the program.
Doesn't matter to me. So
well, maybe, and
we've been expanding.
And if we are lucky, we'll have some photos of that to show when we're on the air.
Yeah, I can provide those. We just started pouring footings last Monday, a week ago. And so we're hoping to really start progressing here through the winter construction season. But about 3-4 years ago, the board started doing an analysis: where should our next expansion be? And we knew we needed to serve western and northwestern Minnesota more. And there's very little help in that area. And Alexandria is actually a major drug trafficking community. Being right on I-94 there, they're between the West Coast and Chicago, they're between Fargo and the Twin Cities. They have a smaller police force. So, and there's a lot of human trafficking that goes on right on that bypass there as well. And we targeted that community. Plus, that community has long time been major supporters of Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. Douglas County is the second highest referring county to our program here in Brainerd, outside of Crow Wing County. Wow. And a lot of clients have come from Douglas County, and we know that we need to provide a campus. So we started searching for old buildings. And that's kind of our modus operandi. We find an old building, we renovate it, we make it work for us, and that's what we do. It's way cheaper. We'll figure out a way to make it work. I looked at every building available. I was begging people, their buildings weren't even for sale. Please sell to us. I even went to a pastor: sell us your building and go build a new one somewhere else. They were going to add on. And he's like, no, get out of my office. He didn't say it that way, but he's like, no, we're not interested. And I kind of was giving up, and our board said, let's look for land. And that's an expensive endeavor.
Oh, boy, is it ever.
And
especially where you ended up.
I could find open field land, that was farmland, or there was the land at the old high school that they'd torn down, but it's in the middle of the whole industrial area there by the hospital and the college, and lots of busyness. And I'm like, we need someplace that's healing, someplace that's a little away, but not too far away, because we need access to emergency services and things like that. And then this jewel of land fell into our lap. One of our donors said, this used to be for sale, but it's not anymore. I wonder if they'd be interested in selling to us. And Dr. William Heegard and his wife Josie had lived on the land for almost 50 years. They both passed away in 2016. He was a beloved physician in the Alexandria community. And they both passed away in 2016, about 4 months apart from each other, in their 80s. And the 4 children who grew up there, none of them lived in the Alexandria community anymore. And they were thinking of maybe doing a development, but they hadn't spent any real money. And then I called. And they said, once they investigated what we did and what we did and the reputation we have in the state of Minnesota, they said, we think Mom and Dad would be honored that the land they loved so much would be used to continue healing in Douglas County. And so they sold to us 13.5 acres. It's the last jewel like this within the city limits of Alexandria.
And what lake is that on?
Lake Winona, right across from the Bethany nursing homes, overlooking downtown basically. And we are going to be building a new facility there, 74 beds. and we're so thrilled.
When do you expect to have that open?
So I've been trying to underpromise and overdeliver. We'll see what happens. Norsun's doing the construction for us on the new building, and we're renovating the house that was on property with volunteer labor right now. And we're hoping in the first half of 24. Okay. So in my head, if we can be open by June of 24, that would be great. Because it's not just finishing the building, then it's all the licensure and the inspections and the codes and obtaining all the things that we need.
And one of the things you mentioned when we've talked about this before is tremendous support from the Alexandria community.
Oh yeah. They've had a banquet there since before the Brainerd campus opened.
Wow.
They were taking busloads of donors to Minneapolis for their gala for years. And they finally went to our CEO and said, we love coming to the gala, but could we just have our own? And he was a little nervous, like, oh no, we're going to lose these donors at our gala. And he goes, no, wait, we're not going to lose our donors. They're going to have their own event.
Wow.
And their very first event, they had 300 people show up. And they did all the work. All we did was show up with risers, a sound system, and the choir, and Pastor Rich.
Wow.
And they've been doing all the work, and it's just been an amazing.
Let's back up to Brainerd for a minute. How many staff do you have at your facility?
Yep, so we have 63 staff and 47 full-time, and the rest are part-time or on-call. We have a large contingency of staff, and a lot of them are graduates of our program. That's one thing that I'm really proud of.
And you have a couple of major fundraisers. Maybe you want to just talk a little bit about what they are.
Oh, we have a ton of them. So in May, we have our big banquet. Then in June, we have the big fishing challenge that's on Gull. That's a statewide fundraising event. Then we have a golf event in July. We have the Crow Wing County Fair, the food booth in the middle of the Crow Wing County Fair. So we're super involved in the community. And then there's an Alex banquet. There's also going to be this year an Alex golf tournament. There's always something going on. Then we have our Christmas concerts, and we do those locally, and those have been great support from the community.
And you're both singers, right? You are now.
Yeah, we are now.
He's a soloist.
Are you really?
Yep.
Wow. Because everyone who goes through the program becomes a part of the chorus, right?
Yeah, if you're in the long-term program, you're in the choir, whether you can sing or not.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty exciting.
And how many places do you have your concerts?
So we are in churches most Sundays. And actually, on average, we do about 80 churches a year.
Wow.
We split the guys up into two groups. We have about 55 guys at any given time in our long-term program. Mm-hmm. So we send 25 over here, 25 over there, and sing in churches all across central Minnesota.
And how do these churches get into your organization for that concert?
Well, a lot of them have been having us for many, many years.
Okay.
They have us annually every year. We go there on that particular Sunday, and they're like, book us for next year. We want to have the choir again. And I've had so many people say to me this, and I hate it when they say it in front of the pastor, this is our favorite Sunday of the year. But they love hearing the stories of redemption, that no one is beyond God's grace and love and mercy, that absolutely anybody can be transformed by God's love. And that's what we're all about.
Do you think we're dealing with more drug addictions today than we ever have?
Yeah, it's actually terrifying what's been happening. COVID was a perfect storm for relapse and using. You lock people down, you put extra money in their pockets, you put a moratorium on evictions, you tell law enforcement stop arresting people, we don't want COVID in the jails, and it took off like wildfire. It's been horrible. I've attended way too many funerals. And fentanyl overdoses since 2015 in Minnesota, since 2015 through 2021, a 500% increase in overdose deaths.
Wow. And a lot of these people don't know they're taking fentanyl, do they?
No, it's been laced. And now they're so there are three kind of major categories of drugs: the uppers, the things that give you energy; the downers, weed, alcohol, opiates, all the pain pills, OxyContin, fentanyl. And then Hazelden calls them the all-arounders, the hallucinogens, the LSD, those kinds of drugs. But meth users want the up. They don't expect their drug to be laced with a downer. And so that their system's not used to it. So they're using meth and overdosing. Not all overdoses end in deaths, but a lot of them do.
Wow, that's really sad. You, I don't want to call them failures, but you have setbacks.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to deal with setbacks as a director.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
You know, it's
Personally.
hard. I spent a lot of nights crying, you know, wishing things had turned out different. I've officiated over far too many funerals, crying moms and dads, wishing things would have been different. And I tell staff, you know, we can't let ourselves get so bogged down in the pain that we forget the person who's right in front of us, because they need that hope given to them as well.
Yeah.
And we press on, doing the best that we can. But it can.
That'd be tough.
Our staff suffer from trauma as well.
I'm sure that's tough. Patrick, what would you like to share today?
I have a story of redemption and transformation since I've come to Teen Challenge. I'm going to give you a little backstory into my life so you can understand how dark my life was and to where I'm at now. I grew up in a home where there wasn't really much trauma. I had a real chip on my shoulder, and I mocked God. I had an entitlement issue, and I ran away from my problems a lot as a young man, and I ended up joining the Navy, and then I got to experience some trauma in life. And I came back from deployment very enraged at God. See, I've always known there's God. I've always known God, but I didn't have an intimate relationship. I didn't accept His love or really show Him love. And when I came back to the States, my addictions took off very, very quickly and in a hardcore fashion. I ended up having a daughter when I was 24, and I haven't seen her for 4 years now. Me and her mother were in a very dark place in life. She's still in active addiction, and every time we go to these church events, which are my favorite part of Teen Challenge, I wish I kind of look for her. You know, if the female Teen Challenge is represented there, the other campuses, I've been kind of looking for her. You know, so I've been praying about her. But back to the darkness. I had a very bad past decade. I picked up all these labels like criminal, thief, degenerate, needle junkie, unfit parent, psycho. You know, I've been in mental institutions before. I stopped caring whether I lived or died. I have overdosed before. I have got into fentanyl. I didn't have a suicide ideation. I didn't want to die, but I didn't live like I cared about myself very much at all, or others around me, and it affected them. I became very destructive. And I came to a point where I was going to go to prison, and I had accepted that. And my brother had actually gone through this program, and he was staff at the time. And I had broken my leg on a relapse, and I was just in a pitiful situation. I was homeless again, and he said, "Patrick, the only way you're going to get sober is with Jesus." And I laughed at him because I mock Christians. I said, "Keep that away from me. Keep that over there. You know, it's not for me." And here's my brother as a man of God walking it out, and I just thought, you know, you're just doing this to get out of prison too. You know, you're just like me. We used to use the same needles and that kind of thing. And he said, "You're gonna die." And he's on the phone crying with me and pleading. And I said, "Well, just come pick me up. Whatever, I give up." You know, I hit my bottom. So I got into the short-term program. I completed for probation, and I didn't have to go to prison. But honestly, seeing my peer, or the peers in the program, looking at my brother walking it out, and I went, he's different. He's walking different. He has this confidence to him. It really inspired me. I wanted more. I got a little taste of the living water, and I wanted more. And then these changes started happening in my life that I can feel. Like my judgments towards people are, I legitimately want to love my brother. I have hope. I don't have this sense of despair. I don't want to say the desire to use has completely been lifted. I have cravings and things like that again, but I don't see my life having to be a junkie anymore. I have this incredible sense of peace, and I want to share it with everybody. I'm not really there yet, being able to express it maybe verbally, but I'm glad that I can't explain it, because I believe in a God that is unexplainable. If he was, he wouldn't be all powerful. I've been forgiven. I have been shown grace and mercy, and I want to share that with other people. And that's kind of what I see my future being, rather than destroying the community around me and being what I was labeled as a degenerate junkie. I'm becoming a man of God, and that is this place.
Well, that's
God.
A great story, Sam. We've got enough time for you to tell your story too, and that's.
Well, much like Patrick, in the past 10 years, I've picked up the labels, the thief. I've been homeless for almost 8 years, in and out of treatment centers, doing the jail and treatment spin cycle, going to jail, getting out, going to treatment, running from treatment. Then when I was 21, I had my first son, and I was in a very dark place in my life when I had my first son, and the mother of my children actually was going to jail, and then she was offered treatment. She committed to a long-term treatment program, and she was really changing her life. And I, of course, made all the promises. I was like, oh, I'll get sober, I'll be clean, I'll get a job, I'll get my license. And I found out very quickly that without preparations, promises don't make you capable, they just make you accountable. And I was accountable for all these things that I said I would do, and I did no preparation when it came time for my son to be born. And so I continued to live that lifestyle. She was being a single mom, doing what she had to do, working, and then we ended up getting pregnant with another child. And then I realized, like, something really has to change here. Like, I have to do something with my life. And so I put myself into treatment, and I wasn't ready yet. And I failed out of that program. And off to the races I went. I just went and continued to be a thief, a liar, a junkie, a manipulator, people pleaser, whatever I could do just to get by, and I wasn't at home. I was being a very absent father. And somewhere along the way, we both fell off, and I was complaining. I'm like, oh, she won't let me see my kids. This is so horrible. But now looking back, like, she had a good for her, because I was not in a healthy predicament for my children. And so this last time around, I went to another treatment center, and I was doing very good. I had my first job, and things like that were going well. I was starting to see the kids. They were coming to Fargo to see me where I was. And the treatment center said, hey, we're supposed to be getting an extension on your insurance, but we're not sure what's going to happen, but we're almost positive. Don't worry about it. Well, as 2 weeks came up, and they said, oh, hey, by the way, we didn't get that extension, and you're going to be going to a homeless shelter. And I'm like, well, when is this happening? It was about 5:30 in the morning. I was getting ready to go to work, and they were like, well, pack your bags, you're leaving at noon. And I'm like, whoa. So I call the mother of my kids, tell her what's going on, and she says, well, you've been making improvements, you've been doing all right, so you can come home, be with the kids, and we can figure it out. Well, within 2 weeks, I fell off. Within 2 weeks, I was back at it, doing the same things, same routine, and then I ended up going to jail again, and I was actually out that night, and I called my mother and my kids at like 5:30 in the morning. I was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to bring the kids to daycare. I'm going to jail right now. She was in distress and freaked out, told her parents what was going on, so she went to take the kids to daycare, and her mom came over to our house and just was going to help clean up, and they found my drugs in the house, called the cops, and told her, if you come back here, we're going to call the cops on you and we're going to turn you in. So she said, well, you need to pick our kids up from daycare then, because I'm not coming back. So my 1- and 2-year-old were just left at a daycare center because mom had nowhere to go with them. had absolutely nowhere to go with them. And that's why I'm thankful that Teen Challenge is buying this property, and they're going to be hopefully opening a Women with Children Center. So this doesn't have to happen to other people. Now my kids are, CPS is involved, but now being a Teen Challenge, like they have this thing called the Fatherhood Challenge, and that's with Lakes Area Restorative Justice Project and LAPS, and teaching men how to be better fathers with like emulate Christ-like qualities. And every opportunity I get to go to these things, and they have support groups for dads, and they're such a big help with parenting classes, support, everything in this community. Teen Challenge is so well connected, and it's really been changing my life. I now see like there is hope. I don't have to be another statistic. I don't have to be another absent father. I can emulate Christ-like qualities to my children so they can see a man of God and respect their father.
Wow, you guys. I'm going to give you credit for going on television and sharing a very personal story. That is not easy to do. And I'm so thankful for someone like Sam, who says, I'm not going to judge you by what you've done. I'm going to judge you by who you are or who you can be. That is pretty cool. Is there anything you want to add, Sam? We got about a minute left.
Yeah, so he mentioned we're about to sign a purchase agreement, and hopefully we'll close by the end of the year. We're going to be purchasing, this fell into our lap, additional acreage that's actually connected to our current property, plus the 3 buildings that were the memory care units of the Good Sam property.
Okay.
And we're going to move our outpatient program there and then begin opening programs for women right here in Brainerd.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and hopefully with the goal of creating a program where moms can bring their small children in with them, because many times they just stay stuck in addiction.
Wow. Great work.
Thank you, Ray.
Great job. Thank you for jumping on the show with us. We really appreciate it. Again, the name of the program is Central Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge, and they're always looking for funds. If you want to go on their website, there's a place you can donate, possibly.
mntc.org.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for watching. I'm Ray Gildow. You've been watching Lakeland Currents. Thank you for sharing your time with us. See you next time.